everyone, this is FantasyEsque and welcome back to the Sims 4 Vampire Amazon Royal Saga. We are continuing with our foreigners that arrived in the previous episode. Tibber has returned to camp, I suppose we could say, along with two of the prince's guards after claiming the nearby forest that was rife with Elflings. So eons ago, I think this forest mysteriously and magically sprouted during Queen Narcissa's time towards the end of her reign. And I think there were a bunch of forest folk living there, and like this group of forest people, they kind of faced some sort of cataclysm, so their race was like on the brink of extinction. And I think we had a bunch of males and one female, and so the queen took it upon herself to look after them and try and help revive their numbers. And I think that one female did have a little baby, but then unfortunately I don't think they ended up staying in this forest. I do believe after a time they moved away somewhere, and I don't know what's become of them since then, but this forest has been abandoned. I mean, I suppose we could think that maybe the Queen Narcissa back in the day, I think Generation 2, she gave them refuge in that forest for a bit to recuperate themselves, and then they went on to occupy some other land. But since then, this forest has been abandoned. And then over time, few maybe villages have sprouted nearby, and Elflings have taken up residence there. So after having that place scouted by Captain Sherlock, Prince Voldemort sent out Tibber, his attendant, and some of the guards to, claim that place and capture some of the Elflings living there so that they could have some sort of food supply. So they didn't manage to capture everyone. A few of the Elflings that were in the forest, fled. And I assume this news will now get to the Queen and the Salazar Coven, the court, because obviously there are going to be some escaped survivors of this incident, right? Regardless, now Voldemort's name is going to start spreading, so he has already started encroaching on the Queen's abandoned territory. And, across the ages, every time we have a new queen, they take over a new part of the empire, or they expand the empire in some way. But it's a lot of give and take, because when you expand, then, you kind of don't have enough personnel to supervise previous areas that you used to own. So it's always a back and forth. So I think these guys lucked out that they arrived in Brindleton Bay after Duncan died, because, there is no representative of the Salazar Empire here, even though this area does belong to the Salazar Empire. Like, if they're observing the nearby common folk and, talking to them, then they'll find out that this does fall under the Salazar Empire, but there is no administrative power here. So, okay, these guys, they're coming back to report their success to the prince. So we will let them do that. The prince is actually outside, and the prince is going inside. He's going down to the basement to train a little bit, it seems. And so the prince, chose to send Tibber rather than the captains, even though the captains would be the more sensible, military choice, because Tibber is his personal attendant, and therefore Tibber can represent the prince in certain situations. So when he's, claiming that piece of territory, it's probably best for Tibber to be there, since he is almost like the prince's spokesperson as well as his caretaker, right? So he did that, but we know that the prince, he's not entirely sure about Tibber's loyalty and the other guards, whereas he does Percival's loyalty to him, that's been already established as far as the prince is concerned, which is why he sent Percival as one of the guards to make sure that what he wants done is done, because he trusts Percival's intentions. But okay, Tibber is gonna come down here, and he's gonna compliment the prince on his success regarding this new piece of land that's been claimed. So now they essentially have this area, and he's gonna go back down. He's gonna report the success to the prince, and I'm sure Prince Voldemort is going to be very, very pleased. But look, we have these Elflings. The only thing is, because the forest is, an exposed place, they can only go hunt there at night. So that is the only downside. They can hunt at night. And you know, I suppose they will also then be trying to hunt anyone else they come across. You know, the common folk they come across. They'll probably try and hunt that. But the Elflings are their sure shot supply. Okay, so we've reported whatever needed to be reported over there. So like I was saying, they have this bit of territory, and then this forest is actually a bit of distance away. It's over here. So they have the Elflings that live in this forest as well. So the reason I think the prince, you know, claimed the forest as opposed to one of the buildings is that since it is more of a wild place, it'll probably be harder for people to keep track of and tabs on. And therefore it'll be easier to hide their activities and actions. So that is what's been happening so far. So everyone's moods are really good because, you know, they've kind of gone and had their drinks, and they've essentially made clear that they are the new power in town, and such. But okay, let's continue a little bit, I think, with some more relationship building within this group. So Tibber, he wanted to become friends with Trista. Now Sherlock is the one who I think does not like Tibber. Sherlock does not approve of Tibber. So Tibber is trying to befriend the brother. Let's enthuse about interests. Is this, yes, this is him. This is Trista. Enthuse about interests. Hip bump. Enthuse about thrill of the steal. The fact that they stole a piece of territory that belonged to someone else. That would get him excited. To give a pep talk. We shall discuss interests. And discuss logic puzzles. I feel like, yeah, Sherlock thinks Tibber is a bit unstable. So he's not too fond of the ideas that Tibber gives. And I think, you know, I mean, again, we haven't been able to establish if Tibber is, you know, loyal to the prince or not. Or at least if the prince believes so. It seems as though Tibber is loyal by the way he's been acting and such. And even if that is the case, I can see how for Sherlock, he might view Tibber's loyalty to the prince as a little bit maniacal. Like he's crazy loyal to the prince. And therefore he might do, you know, questionable, uncertain things to be true to the prince or do what he thinks is in the prince's benefit, which may or may not be always the case. Okay, so he's managed to befriend Trista, and since he and Sherlock disagree on certain things, maybe not to each other, but I assume in private, when they're speaking to the prince in private, they disagree on certain matters. He probably finds Trista the more agreeable twin captain. Okay. Anyone else? Right, and then Sherlock also wanted to become friends with Tibber, and we said not because he likes Tibber, but because he wants to keep an eye on him. Because he knows Tibber's trying to get close to his brother, his twin brother, and he doesn't want Tibber to influence his brother in any way. And that's kind of interesting behavior, I feel, because Sherlock, he's romantic, he's lazy and squeamish, right? Trista, he's a music lover, he's a foodie, he's a nut lover. I always imagine Trista taking his role a bit more seriously than Sherlock. But I suppose, you know, this is a different situation, so everyone's having to grow up in different ways. So actually in this episode, another thing I wanted to do, look, he's very tense around Tibber, but he does want to complain about his problems. I'm gonna vent. I'm gonna try and not insult his fang size. Let's not brood about being a vampire. Ask about day. Okay, so obviously that ain't going too well. Come on, let's make some effort. Discuss plasma flavors. Maybe how those Elflings taste. Do they taste good? Yes, of course. You've had a drink. Discuss local fishing spots. Look at them. He's just like not wanting to be peaceful with Tibber. Like all the stuff that's coming up right now, it's negative. You're gonna have to try though. I think it's really challenging him to be on like good terms with Tibber, but he's gonna flip and try his best because he needs to. Let's do an impression. Let's don't complain. Let's gossip. Yep, gossip. I believe in you, Sherlock. Let's tell an engaging story. Let's have a deep conversation. What else? We don't want to... See, now he's just going... He was, like, wanting to be romantic and then mean. So, he seems a bit confused about Tibber. Let's see. We shall talk about cloudy weather. Maybe talk about the cool temperature. Yep. And then show off powers, maybe? Let's do that. Let's show off powers. But yeah, I do want to, in this episode, kind of go through some more of their stories with these guys, like, you know, their personal stories, so that we know a bit more about them, and that might inform our understanding of their motivations and how they feel about each other, maybe how they feel about the prince. So, okay. Let's see. Brighten day. Brighten day, heartfelt compliment. So you're turning things around, slowly but surely. Brood about being a vampire. Why not? It's stuck in this place. Okay, and then cloudy weather. Okay. This is him keeping tabs on Tibber. Okay, nice. So that's all done and well. And now he feels as though he can keep an eye on Tibber without Tibber being too, like, too alert, too suspicious of Sherlock's attention. Because look, he's like, closer from happy memories, of course, but he's got this festering grudge, so you know. His motives are questionable. But okay. So the only other thing, we have Percival. Percival wants to be friendly with Samwise. Where is Samwise? Percival. Let's gossip about ancient vampires. I imagine that by ancient vampires, they're probably discussing the kingdom that they came from, and they're probably talking about the king. So that's, you know, Prince Voldemort's father. Okay, now you guys go back in. Go back in. Come on. Please? Pretty please? Thank you. Thank you! We know how dangerous the sun is. We don't need people to tell us how dangerous the sun is. Disasters have happened in the past. Okay, nice. Since most of the Simmies are gathered up in this room, let me go through their stories, and, you know, we can, like, revisit their traits, perhaps, just a little bit. Okay, so let's start off with Prince Voldemort. So these are kind of the backstories I had for them. So his traits, just a reminder, he is active, gloomy, and a bookworm, Prince Voldemort Karamazov. He is an accomplished warrior who carries a lot in his mind. His upbringing has made him highly educated and respectful of knowledge. However, it is at the cost of a petty life of royal infighting. So the prince is accomplished, and he does value knowledge, but I feel as though a lot of his life has been wasted, stuck in this, you know, battle for the throne with his two brothers. and I'm fairly sure he is, I'm fairly sure he is the middle child, if I'm not mistaken. He's the middle prince, the second prince. So he has an older brother and a younger brother, and essentially everyone's plotting to kill each other. Or, you know, that's kind of, everyone's like tearing each other down. So that's kind of the life he's lived. So even though he's got, you know, biological brothers, unlike the twin captains here, he always has to be wary of them because they're not necessarily thinking about what's best for each other. They're competing with each other. So that's the prince. Then we have Attendant Tibber Finch. So his traits: art lover, erratic, and kleptomaniac. So he is an insane thief born to a life of crime who tried to steal something precious from the prince once. His life was spared and he has served the prince ever since. So yes, this guy right here was a criminal. He was a criminal, and he tried to steal something. And he's probably born into poverty and he didn't have much choice in life. And one day he tried stealing something from the prince while the prince was out and about. But luckily for him, the prince decided to spare his life, and, you know, he's been the prince's attendant ever since. And as far as, you know, I'm concerned and am aware, he's been utterly loyal to the prince because he is grateful to the prince. One, for sparing his life, not punishing him. And two, his kind of life has changed. You know, he's been raised from poverty because he is the prince's attendant. So his life is definitely much better than it used to be and a lot less uncertain. Okay. Next we have Trista Shevchenko. Trista? I get so nervous when they're out in the sun. But okay, Trista Shevchenko. His traits: he is an art lover, foodie, and music lover. So he is a true patron of the arts who thrives in peace times and has a natural inclination for cultures both old and new. His father was the prince's tutor, and he, along with his twin, were the prince's companions growing up. So both Trista and Sherlock, their father was the prince's tutor, the second prince's tutor, so Voldemort's, and they grew up as his companions. So, you know, by that standard, you could assume that they would be loyal to him because that's been ingrained into them since they were, like, you know, very, very young. But again, I think the fact that everyone's in a new place, in an uncertain situation, you don't really know how people are going to act until they act. So as far as the prince is concerned, histories don't really matter at this point. Everyone's loyalty is being questioned by him until they prove themselves or assure him in some way, like Percival has done. Okay, and then we have Sherlock Shevchenko. So, Captain Sherlock Shevchenko. His traits are romantic, lazy, and squeamish. So he is an avid womanizer who is used to the luxuries of being the prince's close companion. He likes his authority and uses it to delegate unpleasant tasks to his subordinates, something the prince often lectures him about. So that's why I thought it was kind of interesting that he's keeping an eye on Tibber and he doesn't really trust Tibber, because he is actually quite lazy and he doesn't like doing the nitty-gritty work. He kind of just assigns it to, the people that work under him, the other guards, and he gets them to do unpleasant tasks. He likes having the free time to go womanize the other vampiresses in their kingdom and, keep questionable company, I suppose, or get involved with a few too many people than is good for him. That's what he's kind of used to doing. But obviously he doesn't have the time for that right now. So this is kind of youth, like he's being challenged. He's being challenged and he's now dealing with, his responsibility, probably more so than he used to before. But even now, I suppose, he's been scouting and whatnot, but I don't imagine he's the one actually scouting. I think he's just delegating the task to the other guards, but at the end of the day, he's reporting to the prince. And in the past, growing up, like, the prince has reprimanded him quite a few times for not actually doing his job, for just delegating stuff to others. But he's kind of used to the way that their life is. His brother is definitely more balanced, whereas Sherlock, he's grown up kind of spoilt, and he likes being the prince's companion because it affords them certain luxuries that others wouldn't get, right? When the prince gets stuff, he like gifts it to them, he shares things with them, so he likes that lifestyle. Sherlock does. Sherlock likes that lifestyle. Okay, next we have Samwise Zimmer. So, let's see. He is a music lover, evil, and kleptomaniac. So he is the one that we said we have to be wary of. So Sauron is a quiet man who prefers listening over talking. He is actually an assassin sent by the prince's younger brother to kill him during the voyage. As one of the newest additions to the prince's guard, he is not that close to the others. So yes, we are right to be wary of Sauron, because Sauron is actually, remember how I said the prince was the second son? He has an older brother and a younger brother. Well, his younger brother, actually, when he found out that Voldemort was going out on a voyage, he figured that he would send an assassin into the prince's guard, and they would kill off the prince during the voyage. And then there would be one less person to compete with. And that's what Sauron's here for. That's what Sauron's doing. And so he doesn't really like interacting with the others too much. He's mad. Oh, well, I mean, he's obviously, trusts his own brother, Samwise. But apart from that, he doesn't really chat to the others. He kind of likes sticking to himself and just observing them. Because, one, he doesn't want to give too much about himself away. And two, he's actually here for, one thing really. But because the prince is now surrounded by all these people and everyone's on high alert, he can't really take action right now. So he's just biding his time, I think. And also, if you guys remember in the movie, when the prince and Sherlock were talking to each other in the pool, he was there and he was listening. And it very much gave me the vibe that, he's planning, he's thinking how to go about this in his mind. So he's trying to keep his eyes and ears open for any opportunities that might come his way. So that's Samwise Zimmer. And then we have his brother. We've got, what's he doing? Okay, we've got his brother, Samwise Zimmer. So Samwise is gloomy, he hates children, and he is a cat lover. So he is a brooding man who grew up in the orphanage and was granted a place among the prince's guard when he came of age. The other kids he was raised with were quite often mean, and as such, he hates the idea of children. So they both lost their parents at a young age, and so they were sent to the orphanage, both Samwise and Sauron. But I did mention that they grew up apart from each other, and that's because Sauron was actually adopted by a mysterious group, right? A sponsor, mysterious person / group. He was adopted by them. Unfortunately, his brother was not brought along. And I imagine when he was at that place, he trained how to be an assassin. And then at some point, he was sent and then, scouted or given in service to the third prince. And then the third prince got him to join Prince Voldemort's guard to be the assassin. And then he reunited with his brother Samwise. So obviously, the people or group that adopted him for the purpose of becoming an assassin did not want to bring his brother along, because maybe they felt that having a brotherly bond, having a sibling in that sort of situation would make someone weaker. So they separated the brothers at a young age. And actually Samwise was older and Sauron is younger. So again, probably the younger child would have been easier to manipulate. So, yeah, that's them. Then we have, let's see, God Pharamond. So God Pharamond Vasilishin. So he is gloomy, lazy, and jealous. So Pharamond is a spoilt man from a well-off merchant household who got jilted by love and joined the prince's guard on a whim to outdo a rival out of jealousy. He never thought he'd end up so far from home and is regretting his decision. So yeah, he did not actually see this, as a career. He kind of just, what is this? Yeah, he kind of just entered the prince's guard to prove how he was, a worthy vampire. He was a worthy male, because the woman he was romancing, she rejected him for some other vampire. And, he's from a well-off merchant household. He's never really been lacking anything in his life. So he got really jealous and annoyed about why that was the case. Like, he's just as good, if not better. Why was he rejected? So he went to prove himself, and he thought, I'll just temporarily join the prince. He's not going anywhere dangerous. He's not doing anything dangerous. It's just supposed to be an exploration. And then, they'll probably... He'll be essentially holidaying. And then they'll come back home and he can prove himself a man because he was in the prince's voyage and get back at that rival. Unfortunately, they got shipwrecked and now he's stuck here, and they're actually doing things like, conquering the area and taking over the territory. So I think he's having the hardest time getting adjusted. He's definitely having the hardest time. And he can't stop thinking about how much he regrets joining and how much he wished he did not care about that woman nearly as much and the rival nearly as much to get involved in the situation in the first place. There's no backing out now. They don't even know how to get back home. So really, he has to make of it the best that he can. But he's not entirely happy. And then finally, we have Percival, the only god that has managed to prove his loyalty to the prince. So Percival, his traits: vegetarian, dog lover, and cat lover. He is a calm, thoughtful man of shamanic origins with a natural affinity for creatures. He joined the prince's guard because he believes in the prince as a leader and feels that their kingdom will fall to ruin without him. So in the previous episode, I was saying how Percival, there's a reason why the others are probably drawn to him, apart from the fact that he is one of the older Sims. There's something about his origins that kind of makes people feel at peace with him and trust him. And it is because he is from shamanic origins. So he's used to being surrounded by people of wisdom and, giving good kind of sagely advice and such, and being connected with certain aspects of nature and certain spiritual powers. So naturally, he is someone that does not really have greedy motivations. And so the prince probably feels as though he is the most trustworthy out of everyone here. There is no reason for him to harm the prince. And he genuinely believes he joined the guard because he believes, rather than becoming a shaman, because he believes in Voldemort as the, next leader of their kingdom. And he kind of wants to help action Voldemort's rise to power in the future. He probably feels as though just sitting around and waiting for fate to happen and destiny to take over, that is not helpful at all and in no way is going to benefit the kingdom they come from. He believes that Voldemort should be the next king, and he wants to actively help Voldemort become the next king. So that is Percival. And let's see, is there anything else? Right. Well, I might as well go ahead and give kind of an overview of the prince's... I already shared his backstory, but, an overview of the prince's history regarding like where we're at, where we're coming from, all of that. So the prince is one of 3 sons locked in a deadly battle for the throne. To gain favor with his father, he set out with his private army across the seas to find new territories for the kingdom. But he got caught in a storm and his ships were destroyed. Only he and 7 loyal men managed to survive the shipwreck and washed onto the beaches of Brindleton Bay. They've set up camp and aggressively have begun claiming territory to present to their court. So like he said, even if his father thinks he's dead, he's going to try and prove himself. And that's exactly what he's doing. So he went out with a private army, not just his guard. He had a private army, and he went out on a few ships, I think, to go and claim territory, find new places to bring back to the court, and increase, his favor and his standing with the royal family and also all the nobles. Unfortunately, got caught in a storm, and everyone in his private army died except for him and these 7 men who he assumes is loyal because they make up his private guard. But we know that one of them is actually an assassin. Sauron the youngest is an assassin sent by the 3rd prince. So there we go, guys. That's kind of all this stuff. Oh geez, that's kind of all the stuff that's been happening with these folk and what we wanted to get a feel of. So how's everyone going for drinks? It is nighttime, so actually I think we're gonna take everyone to the forest, and they are going to, let's see, they're going to grab their drinks from the Elflings that are there. But also, we did see some of the flowers. We saw some of the flowers come here. They were like walking around in the area. But let's go to the captured Elflings, and everyone shall grab their drinks. That was a fair bit. That was a fair bit of stuff going on. My goodness. My goodness. Okay. I'm kind of wondering. Oh, you guys all just came in yours. Well, hey. They all just came in their swimwears because they were in the pool, I think. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, everyone, just grab a drink. I like how everyone's almost next to an elfling. Like everyone's assigned an elfling. That's funny. Okay, we are just going to drink from everyone. This is convenient. Like everyone, it's like the elflings knew. The elflings knew they were coming, and they all freaked out, more or less, went over to present themselves, because at this point, I think the Elflings don't know much about these vampires. They're quite fearful of these vampires. They look different. I mean, the vampires in this land, already the females, they are quite dangerous, but thankfully they have a group of plasma flowers they drink from, so their attention is elsewhere. Like these Elflings, they're kind of left alone for the most part. So they've never really seen the, royal and noble vampires up close. And then now they have this new kind of vampire that's showed up, and, they are as scary as what they've heard about the Salazars, but also they look different. They've got these horns, so, even more terrifying. So I think they're trying to be as submissive as possible so that they don't get in trouble and nothing wrong happens over here. There we go. All the elflings. Everyone's managed to get a drink for themselves. And this is essentially, you know, the forest where these Elflings reside. So, okay, let's check out some more whims that's been happening, I think. Okay, so this one, Samwise, actually Sauron? Sauron's a guilty drinker? That's kind of fascinating, that Sauron is a guilty drinker. Very fascinating. Because, you know, he is evil, so you would not think he'd be guilty. He's evil, he's a klepto, he's used to taking things from others. You'd think this brings him joy. But, I don't know. Maybe it feels as though they're not much of a challenge. Like, it's been taken too easily. Maybe he was raised wherever he was raised. Like when he was training to be an assassin, maybe they had to work very hard for what they got, so he doesn't feel that satisfied getting something so easily like this. Kind of interesting. But he wants to flirt with Captain Trista. Was he the one that was flirting with Trista, or Trista was flirting with... I don't know. But regardless, he obviously, you know, we've already established he's an assassin. He doesn't like being too close to others. So if he's wanting to flirt with Trista, I imagine it's because he wants to get close to one of the two captains, you know, so that he can make an opportunity to take the prince's life in the future. That's what I'm imagining. Okay, Faramon, our well-off merchant guard, regrets being here. Wants to stargaze with God Percival. Okay, so the little mission they went on to claim this area probably made him a bit more comfortable with Percival. And like I said, Percival's, you know, shamanic, so everyone kind of feels at peace around him. Okay, Trista wants to flirt with Prince Voldemort. I wonder, has he flirted with anyone else? I feel like his brother is the womanizer, but he's the one that's been flirting with some of the others. I feel like he's flirted with someone else before as well. I don't remember entirely. I feel like he might have flirted with someone. Maybe Samwise? Not entirely sure. But he wants to flirt with the prince. I wonder if he's had feelings for the prince. Like, they grew up together. It wouldn't be too hard to imagine. You know, since they know sides of the prince different to what everyone else does. And look, all the ladies, all the Elflings, they're just flocking around Prince Voldemort. Because, you know, this area was claimed under Voldemort Karamazov's name, so they're probably wanting to promise their loyalty to him, make it so that they don't appear threatening to him, maybe plead for their lives and such. They want to know what type of person is now in control of this area, I imagine. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Trista, like, they get to see the vulnerabilities, or they did growing up, of Voldemort. So, you know, if he suddenly had affection, or he kind of grew feelings for him, I wouldn't be too surprised. Okay, Samwise, he also wants to flirt with Prince Voldemort. Okay, it's the prince. It is a prince. Samwise grew up in the orphanage. He doesn't like the idea of kids and such, but, you know, it's the prince. The prince gave him an opportunity by being in the guard and such, so I can understand also how he would admire the prince. Very interesting. Okay, Sherlock wants to flirt with God Faramon. Okay. Yeah. But where's Faramon? Faramon's here? I wonder why Faramon. Like, why Faramon? Out of everyone. And look, he's angry. He's angry at, I bet, Tibber. He's angry at Tibber. Does not like Tibber's company very much. And, you know, it also makes sense if he's grown up in kind of this noble origin and Tibber was born in a life of crime, that he probably doesn't feel as though Tibber is a good influence on the prince at all, and on his brother, actually. But he doesn't mind Faramon, because, actually, that makes sense. Faramon would be, a merchant son. So, as far as he's concerned, Faramon's status is above Tibber's. So, Faramon is kind of acceptable company. And then Percival wants to flirt with Voldemort. Of course he does. He thinks the prince is the ideal ruler for their kingdom, and I can understand how then the prince would be more attractive to him. As well as loving the ideals of the prince, you kind of fall in love with the person behind the ideals. What about Voldemort himself? Voldemort is drawn, it appears, to the merchant's son, to Pharamond right now. He's drawn to this merchant who is part of the guard, but he doesn't really want to be here and is filled with regrets. That's interesting. I don't know who's gonna take action regarding any of these, but it's cool to know where everyone's at in terms of their feelings. And actually, I might action them off camera, but before we return to the Salazar court. But I just think that's super fun to, see, now that we know their backstories, who's doing what because of what. But okay, guys, with that said and done, I'm going to leave off. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.